Hi, I'm Leora, and I was supposed to be a bride. Not a princess, not someone expecting fireworks or flower walls or 1,000 glassy-eyed guests. Just a bride. A woman who wanted to walk down an aisle and see her people. The ones who raised her, who watched her fall and get back up, who said they loved her, smiling back. Instead, I got an envelope. It came in the mail. No return address, but I recognized my mother's handwriting on the front. Clean, looped letters, carefully centered. That was her, always put together, always calculated. Inside wasn't an RSVP card, or even a note to say they'd try. Just a folded piece of printer paper with 6 words typed in black Arial font, like a damn invoice. No one's coming, don't take it personally. I read it 3 times, thinking maybe I was missing something. A punchline, a second page, anything. There was nothing. I stood at the kitchen counter, wedding guest list in one hand, their letter in the other. My fiancé's voice floated in from the living room, something about the bakery calling back. I couldn't hear the words, just the tone. Light, excited, warm. I didn't tell him. Not yet. Instead, I slid the paper back into the envelope and tucked it between the recipe books on the shelf, next to the one my mom gave me when I moved out. Quick meals for one. It had always felt like a joke I wasn't in on. You'd think something like this would be a shock, that I'd drop the envelope or scream or cry or something, but it landed soft, like I'd already been waiting for it without knowing. And maybe I had. The thing is, this wasn't about a wedding. Not really. This was about every dinner table I sat at with my stories still in my throat. Every missed birthday text, every "we're proud of you, but..." and every moment my brother was celebrated for things I was never allowed to try. My fiancé, Nathan, kept asking if I wanted to invite more people. Maybe your aunt? Or that old teacher you liked? But you can't fill a gap that big with placeholders. Still, I smiled. I played the role. I told him I was fine, that we'd keep it small, intimate, personal. We don't need a big crowd, I said. Just the people who matter. I didn't tell him those people had already RSVP'd with silence. 2 days later, I got a call from my brother Caleb. I hadn't heard from him in 6 months. Not since he borrowed money for an emergency, and then posted photos from a Vegas weekend with his friends. Hey, he said casually. Mom said you were upset about the RSVP thing. I didn't answer. I mean, don't take it so personally. You know how Mom gets about weddings. She thinks they're a waste of money. I finally spoke. Then why'd she pay for yours? Silence. That was different, he said. I was the first to get married. Plus, Dad was still working then. Things were easier. But not for me. Come on, Leora. You always make everything so dramatic. Look, just elope or whatever. You don't need all this. You've got Nathan. That's what matters. It wasn't what he said that broke me. It was how easy it was for him to say it. How natural. Like it hadn't taken me years to believe I deserved something beautiful. Like love, celebration, and dignity were only rationed, and mine had run out. I hung up. Nathan found me on the floor in the closet that night, sitting between boxes of centerpieces and ribbon samples. I wasn't crying, just sitting, staring at the half-folded table chart like it could somehow rearrange itself into a family. He didn't say anything at first, just sat beside me and waited. After a while, he asked, "Do you want to cancel?" "No," I whispered. "Do you want to uninvite them?" I looked at him. They already did that part for me. He wrapped his arms around me. Then we make it ours, and we make it count, just us and the ones who actually show up. It sounded simple, but I knew better. I knew the ache of absence could still be deafening, even in a room full of joy. I didn't tell anyone else what was in that envelope. I didn't send out a second round of invites. I didn't follow up with cousins who forgot to check the date. I just circled the guests who had RSVP'd yes, crossed out the rest, and called the florist to cut down the order. And quietly, I started planning something else too. Not revenge, not a meltdown, just a moment. One they wouldn't see coming, one they wouldn't forget. Because if they weren't going to come to my wedding, I'd make sure it was the one thing they'd remember for the rest of their lives. I remember the first time I tried on a wedding dress. It wasn't supposed to happen that day. I hadn't booked an appointment, hadn't even planned to walk into a boutique. I was just wandering after brunch, still thinking about the envelope, about the 6 little words that sat like a bruise behind my ribs. I saw the window display, soft ivory, organza layered like clouds, and before I knew it, I was pulling the door open. The consultant looked up with that smile people give when they've already judged you. She glanced at my jeans and thrifted jacket, then softened her voice the way customer service people do when they think you're just here to kill time. "Are you looking for someone?" she asked. "No," I said, "just me." That answer seemed to surprise her. She blinked, then gestured gently toward a row of empty chairs near the mirrors. "Normally we book parties in advance. Friends, moms, bridesmaids. I don't have anyone else coming." It came out too clean, like I'd practiced it, like it wasn't supposed to hurt anymore. To her credit, she didn't flinch, just nodded and said, "Well, let's find you something that makes you feel like you." She was better than I expected. Quick, intuitive. She didn't talk too much, just watched me in the mirror and pulled styles that matched how I stood, not just what I said. I tried on 6 dresses. The 7th one made me stop breathing. It wasn't flashy, no diamonds, no plunging back, but it had weight, like something ancient and strong, the kind of dress you wear when you walk into a room alone and still hold the air. I stood there for a long time, just looking, not smiling, just seeing myself, and I thought, this is the dress I will wear when they're not there. When I stepped out to the mirror again, the consultant asked, "Want to FaceTime someone?" "No," I said. "I think I'm done asking people to care." Nathan didn't ask many questions when I came home with the garment bag. He knew the look in my eyes. He'd seen it after the baby shower incident, after the Thanksgiving we ate Chinese takeout because I couldn't face another table with them. "You like it?" he asked. "I do," I said, and meant it. But what I didn't say, what I couldn't say, was that part of me had always imagined my mom would be there for that moment. Not because she'd earned it, but because I thought, maybe this would be the thing that changed her. That softened her. That made her see me not as the one who handles things, but as someone worthy of celebration. She used to say, "Leora's the strong one. She doesn't need much fuss." And for years, I believed that was love. A few nights later, Nathan and I went over the guest list again. We sat on the floor, wine glasses on coasters, pages spread out like a puzzle we didn't want to solve. "Should we take Caleb off completely?" he asked. I paused. "Leave him. Let him choose not to come. It's worse when they choose." He looked at me. "You're not trying to hurt them?" "No," I said. "I'm just done trying not to be hurt." He nodded slowly, then added, "You're allowed to change your mind, you know, about inviting them, about all of this." I shook my head. "No, I think this time I finally got it right." The next day, I got a voicemail from my mother, first in months. Her voice was like cold water poured over something burning, controlled, brisk, coded in etiquette. "Leora, I saw your registry link through Caleb. I assume the wedding is still on. Just wanted to remind you that your father and I won't be attending. We thought we'd made that clear. You should plan accordingly. Best of luck with the festivities." Not even a congratulations, just logistics. Plan accordingly. I played the message twice, then again, let the words settle, let myself feel the dull throb of disappointment that somehow still found me, even after everything. I didn't call her back, but I did forward the voicemail to my Aunt Ellie, my mother's estranged sister, the one they never talked about except in whispers. Ellie's a mess. Ellie doesn't understand family. The one who sent me birthday cards every year, even when I moved twice and never gave her my new address. 10 minutes later, my phone buzzed. "Ellie. Sweetheart, I'll be there. Don't worry about a thing." What no one tells you is that silence can be louder than screaming, and after a while, when you've been left out enough times, you start to carry your joy like a secret. You stop posting, stop announcing. You learn to treasure your milestones quietly. It's safer that way. But this time, I didn't want quiet. I wanted witnesses. I wanted to stand in front of people who chose me, not out of guilt or blood or social obligation, but because they saw something worth showing up for. So I sent Ellie a +4. She asked, "Who are the other seats for?" "Anyone who ever told me I mattered," I said. Even if it was just once. The first time I visited Aunt Ellie's house, I realized just how little I knew about her. She lived 2 towns over, in a converted duplex surrounded by stubborn ivy and wildflowers that had long since escaped their planters. Her front porch was cracked but painted a cheerful blue, and wind chimes danced in the soft spring air. It didn't match anything I knew of my family. It was loud in its softness, free in its mess. She opened the door with flour on her hands and a cat trailing behind her like it paid rent. "You came," she said, surprised. "Most people don't." I stepped inside. Her living room smelled like cinnamon and something citrusy. There were books stacked in corners, not for decoration but because they'd actually been read. Framed photos covered the walls, mostly people I didn't recognize, but I saw a younger version of my mother in one of them, holding a lemonade glass, laughing. Really laughing, not the polite smile she wore like lipstick. "I wasn't sure if I should," I said honestly. She wiped her hands and gestured to the couch. "Well, that's how you know it matters. The best things are the ones we hesitate for." We sat for hours. She made tea the old-school way, with loose leaves and a strainer shaped like a little silver moon. No one had made me tea like that before, not even my mother. At first we talked about the wedding, just logistics, flowers, shoes. Then the conversation veered. "Your mom, she wasn't always like that, you know." I looked at her, surprised. "Like what?" "Cold, controlled, obsessed with what people think. That started after you were born." I felt my stomach twist. "So I broke her?" "No." Ellie shook her head. "She broke herself trying to be someone she thought she had to be. Your father, he was always that kind of man. Reputation over reality. And your mother? She chose survival. But it cost her softness." That silence again, the one that drops when someone says the thing you've always suspected but hoped wasn't true. "She used to be the rebel," Ellie continued, a smile ghosting across her face. "We used to sneak out and climb water towers. She once dyed her hair green just to piss off our grandmother. She was loud, free, a mess." "She hates mess now," I whispered. "She fears it," Ellie corrected. "Because mess reminds her of who she used to be, and she spent decades pretending that girl never existed." Later, as I helped Ellie clear dishes, she pulled a small box from her kitchen drawer. "I've been saving these," she said, setting it down. Inside were letters. Real ones. Postmarked, yellowed, written in the loopy cursive I recognized as my mother's. Some of them dated back nearly 2 decades. "I used to write to her," Ellie said. "Every birthday, every Christmas. Even after she stopped writing back. I thought maybe one day she'd soften again, that she'd remember who we were to each other." I pulled out one of the letters. It was dated the year I graduated high school. My mom hadn't come to the ceremony, said it was too far, and she had meetings. The letter, though, it said something else. "Leora's graduating this week. I didn't tell her I'm not going. I don't think she even expects me to anymore. She's learned to pretend it doesn't bother her. I know that look. It's the same one I wore when Mom stopped coming to my recitals." My breath caught. "She knew?" I whispered. "She knew how it felt, and still—" Ellie put a hand on my arm. "She loves you, but she's afraid of what love might cost her. Vulnerability, regret, ownership of what she's done, and some people would rather lose everything than admit they were wrong." When I got home that night, Nathan noticed the shift in me. "You're quiet," he said. "Just processing." He handed me a cup of tea. "Did you get answers?" "I got context," I said. "But I don't know if that's the same thing." We sat in the silence together, the safe kind this time, the kind that doesn't avoid but allows. "I think," I said slowly, "that the person I needed her to be doesn't exist anymore." Nathan didn't argue. He didn't try to fix it. He just squeezed my hand and said, "Then we grieve her and build around who's here." 2 days later, I got another voicemail. Not from my mother, from my cousin Leah, Ellie's daughter. We hadn't spoken in years. Not since a fight at a family barbecue where I defended Ellie and got iced out by half the relatives for it. "Hey Leora, Aunt Ellie told me about the wedding. I just want to say, I never forgot what you said back then. You were the only one who stood up for her. I'd love to come to your wedding, if you'll have me. And I know a few others who would too. People who've always seen you, even if we didn't say it. I saved the message. I replayed it. Then I added 5 new names to the guest list. The voicemail was only 6 seconds long. Not from my mom, not from Caleb, not even directly to me. It was from my father, left on Ellie's voicemail by mistake. His voice was clipped, careful, as if even when he thought no one was listening, he still couldn't allow himself to sound real. Tell her not to stir things up. This wedding's not the place for old wounds. That was it. 6 seconds that rewrote everything I thought they weren't saying. All this time, I thought silence was just absence. But silence was strategy, a curated form of control. Ellie called me right after. I wasn't going to tell you, she said. But then I thought, maybe that's the problem. Everyone keeps deciding what you should and shouldn't know. I'm not doing that anymore. I didn't say anything at first. I just sat there, letting the quiet throb in my chest. Then finally, what exactly do they think I'm going to do? Stand up mid-vows and read off a list of grievances like a courtroom indictment? Ellie sighed. They think if they don't show up, they get to keep their version of the story intact. One where they were never cruel, just busy, just doing their best. Even if it means erasing me. She didn't answer. She didn't have to. Later that night, I found Nathan folding linen napkins at the dining table, measuring ribbon with a quiet kind of focus that looked like peace, the opposite of what was happening in my mind. I sat across from him and watched his hands. You think I'm doing too much? I asked. He glanced up. What do you mean? This wedding, the way I'm holding on to parts of it, the way I'm still angry. Nathan put the ribbon down and met my eyes. I think you've spent most of your life minimizing yourself so they wouldn't feel uncomfortable. I think you've been quiet for so long it feels wrong to speak loudly now. But that doesn't mean it is. I swallowed. Ellie got a voicemail from my dad. Nathan raised his brows but waited. They're afraid I'll stir things up. As if my truth is some disruptive force instead of the truth. He reached across the table, took my hand. They're not afraid of what you'll say. They're afraid of how many people will believe you. A few days later, I ran into Caleb at Target. I was there grabbing place cards and a last-minute frame for a photo table I was putting together. He was in the electronics aisle, sunglasses on indoors, scrolling through his phone like he was famous. He saw me before I saw him. Leora, he said, nodding like we were acquaintances. I blinked. You're here. Picking up something for Mom? Of course. He looked me over, not in a judgmental way, more like he was assessing whether I was going to make it weird. I heard you're still going through with the wedding, he said. I am. You know, if you weren't so stubborn, they probably would have come around. I blinked. Is that what you think? That I'm the one keeping them away? He shrugged. It's not that complicated, Leora. You always make things bigger than they are. I stepped closer, not aggressive, just clearer. You know what's funny, Caleb? Every time I try to tell the truth, someone calls it drama. But when I stay quiet, they call me distant. You can't win in a family where your choices are either invisible or inconvenient. He looked caught off guard, just for a second. Then he said, It's not like they hate you, they just don't get you. I smiled, not the kind he expected. No, Caleb, they get me just fine, they just don't like what they see. I left him standing there, didn't wait for a comeback, didn't look over my shoulder. When I got home, Nathan was in the kitchen, slow roasting chicken and humming some tune he always hums when he doesn't know I'm listening. I walked in, dropped my bag, and wrapped my arms around him from behind. He didn't ask what happened. He just leaned back into me and whispered, You're doing better than you think. And I believed him. That night, I pulled out the photo frame I'd bought, meant for old memories, old friends. I was going to fill it with pictures of those who'd shown up for me along the way, even in the smallest ways. Ellie at my college graduation, holding a balloon that said, Yes, you did. Leah and me at a beach trip when we were kids, matching towels and sunburnt noses. My freshman roommate who sat with me through my first heartbreak. My boss from the coffee shop who once drove across town to jumpstart my car. And Nathan, in every quiet corner of my life, holding space. Those were my people, Not the ones who gave me life, but the ones who reminded me I had one. The email came at 2:14 a.m. Subject: Let's talk. From Mom. I almost didn't open it. My finger hovered above the screen for a good minute. I wasn't sure what I was more afraid of, her pretending nothing happened, or pretending it all did. But I clicked. Leora, I've been thinking. About everything. About you. I realize now we could have handled things differently. Maybe we made mistakes. I know we've hurt you. That was never our intention. If it's not too late, I'd like to sit down and talk. Just the two of us. Before the wedding. Love, Mom, no excuses, no blaming, no we were busy or you misunderstood. On the surface, it looked like growth, a rare, clean apology, and yet it felt off. Something about the timing, the precision of the phrasing, like it had been written, deleted, reworded, maybe rehearsed with someone else looking over her shoulder. Maybe someone like Caleb. I stared at the blinking cursor in the reply box and typed 3 words. When and where. We met at a coffee shop halfway between her house and mine. Neutral territory. I got there 10 minutes early, ordered chamomile tea I didn't want, and sat at a window seat where I could see her coming. She arrived exactly on time. Hair smoothed, coat pressed, that familiar scent of gardenia and restraint clinging to her like armor. She didn't hug me, just nodded, sat, and placed her purse in her lap like a shield. Thank you for coming, she said. I nodded. You wanted to talk. She folded her hands. I'll just say it. I'm sorry. For the way things have felt. For what you've been carrying. Felt? I asked quietly. She hesitated. For what's happened, she corrected. That's different. She looked down at her hands. I know. I'm trying. Trying. That word did something to me, like lighting a match in a room full of gas. You've had years to try, I said. When I got my scholarship and you told me I should defer so Caleb could have help with his move-in, when I showed up at Thanksgiving with Nathan and you forgot to set a place for me, when you cropped me out of the holiday card photo. That was a mistake. No, Mom. It was a decision. 1,000 little decisions that added up to one big message. I was always optional. She swallowed. Hard. I didn't realize how deeply you felt that way. That's the problem, I said. You didn't realize, and you didn't ask. There was a long silence between us, the kind that weighs heavier than yelling. Finally, she said, You're right. It didn't sound defensive. It didn't sound rehearsed, and for a second I almost believed it, until she added, too quickly, But maybe this wedding can be a reset. Maybe if we show up, it's a gesture, that we want to move forward. There it was. I stared at her. So that's what this is? An apology with strings attached? Her voice softened. Too much. Sweetheart, your father and I just think it would mean something to the rest of the family, to see us there, to put this behind us. Put it behind us, as if trauma could be boxed up like last season's decor. I leaned back. And what about what it would mean to me? She blinked. Isn't that what you want? For your family to come? No, I said. Not if it means pretending none of it happened. Not if it costs me the peace I've finally built. She reached across the table, her hand hovering. Leora, please. I'm saying I'm sorry. I'm saying we'll come. That's what matters. I stood. Showing up doesn't matter if you have to erase everything I've survived to do it. I didn't cry when I left the coffee shop. Not in the car. Not when I got home. But when I walked into the kitchen and saw the cake sample tray Nathan had picked up, complete with a sticky note that said, Thought you'd want options, I sat on the floor and let myself feel the full weight of it. Not grief, not rage, just the hollow ache of a chapter closing and knowing no rewrite was coming. That weekend, I sat with Ellie and Leah in Ellie's kitchen, going over seating charts and playlist options. Leah looked at me mid-conversation and said, You okay? I nodded, then paused. Actually, no, but I'm getting better at not mistaking closure for healing. Ellie poured more tea. Closure's overrated, she said. You want something that lasts? Choose truth over resolution, every time. 2 days later, my mom emailed again. Short, almost clinical. Understood. We won't attend. We hope it's a beautiful day. We won't reach out again unless invited to. There it was. Not a punishment, a choice. And this time, it was mine. The morning of the wedding, the sky broke open, not with rain, but that kind of cold, holy stillness just before something changes. The air was heavy with unspoken things, but clean, like the world itself had paused to hold space. I'd expected to feel nervous or overwhelmed, maybe even sad. But what I felt was steady. Nathan and I had agreed not to do the first look thing. We wanted to save that moment for the aisle, but he'd left a note for me, tucked into the bouquet ribbon. It said, "I'm not just meeting you at the altar. I've been walking toward you for years." That did it. That broke me open. Not in a tragic way. In a finally I can breathe way. Ellie zipped up my dress. Leah adjusted my earrings. No one fussed or hovered. They just moved around me like I belonged. "You ready?" Ellie asked, brushing something invisible from my shoulder. I met her eyes in the mirror. I've never been more ready to be seen. The ceremony was held in a small greenhouse, repurposed into a venue filled with climbing jasmine, potted orange trees, and strings of soft golden lights. We'd chosen it because it felt alive, like something still growing. People filtered in slowly, familiar, unfamiliar. A coworker who once brought me soup when I had the flu, my freshman English professor, Leah's girlfriend, friends I hadn't spoken to in years but who showed up without needing to be asked. Every chair filled felt like an affirmation, you mattered to someone. And then, 10 minutes before the music started, I saw her, my mother, standing just outside the greenhouse doors in a pale gray dress, holding a small clutch and nothing else. No dad, no Caleb, just her, alone. Ellie saw her too. "She's not on the list," I said quietly. "I know," Ellie said. "What do you want to do?" I looked at the open door. She hadn't crossed the threshold. She was waiting. For what, I didn't know. Permission? Forgiveness? A reaction? "I don't want to stop her," I said, "but I'm not pausing this for her either." The music began. A soft piano version of "The First Time Ever I Saw Your Face." Not traditional, not expected, but it felt like home. I walked in, and for once, every eye in the room was where I wanted them to be. Not because I demanded attention, but because I had stopped begging for invisibility. Nathan was already crying. I wasn't. My heart was calm, still like that morning sky. When I reached him, he didn't speak, just mouthed, "Hi." "Hi," I whispered back. We held hands like lifelines. The ceremony was simple. No grand declarations, just promises spoken slowly, carefully, like we dug them out from the ground ourselves. At the end, when the officiant said, "You may kiss," we did, but not with a performance. Just a quiet, forehead-to-forehead breath of a kiss that said, "We're here now." The applause felt far away, like static, but the warmth in my chest was real. During the reception, I noticed the empty seat in the last row, the one that was never assigned. My mother had slipped in after the vows, sat in the back, said nothing. She didn't approach me, didn't ask for a photo, didn't corner Nathan or Ellie. She just sat, ate half a piece of cake, left. Some would call that cowardice. But I saw it for what it was, the most honest thing she'd ever done. She came, not to be seen, but to witness. Sometimes that's enough. After the toasts, after the dancing, after the part where someone spilled champagne on the guest book and we all laughed like it wasn't sacred, I pulled out a folded note and gave it to the coordinator. "If anyone asks about the seat in the back," I said, "give them this." Inside it read, "I didn't need you to perform. I just needed you to show up without rewriting the story. Thank you for doing that, even if it took you years." Later that night, as Nathan and I sat barefoot on the venue steps, shoes off, candlelight flickering inside, he leaned his head against mine. "You did it," he said. "No," I corrected. "We did. But you rewrote the ending." I looked back through the windows at the people still dancing, at Ellie twirling Leah's girlfriend, at two of my old college friends in deep conversation, at the seat in the back, still empty. And for the first time, I didn't feel that emptiness as absence. I felt it as space. The morning after the wedding was quiet in a way that felt earned. Nathan and I woke in our tiny rented cottage, barefoot, tangled in linen sheets that smelled faintly of citrus and champagne. There were petals still clinging to my hair. His tux jacket hung crookedly over a chair. The silence wasn't hollow. It was sacred. "You ready to come back to Earth?" he asked, his voice rough with sleep. "Not yet," I whispered. "Let's stay up here a little longer." Later that afternoon, Ellie and Leah came by with leftover cake and half the floral arrangements. We sat on the floor, passing a bottle of Prosecco, recounting all the moments I'd already begun to forget. The guest who tripped over a fern mid-toast, the little flower girl who refused to let go of Nathan's leg, the DJ who accidentally played ABBA during the vows and somehow made it work. No one brought up the empty seat in the back row. No one needed to. Its presence had already been acknowledged in its own quiet way. And then, like everything that doesn't grow, it passed. That evening, I sat alone at the writing desk in our new apartment. The box Ellie had gifted me, carved wood, lined with blue velvet, sat open beside me. It was meant to hold keepsakes, she said. I was about to place my vow cards inside when I paused and pulled out a pen instead. I didn't plan what I wrote. It just came. To the people who raised me, but never truly saw me, this isn't a letter for closure. Closure implies something was once open. We both know it wasn't. I'm not writing for your guilt or even your regret. I'm writing this because one day you might wonder how it all felt from the side you never looked at. It felt like being edited out of every story told in my name. Like sitting at dinner tables where my voice was background noise. Like celebrating my victories in empty rooms. Like apologizing for the space I took up. You didn't have to be perfect. You just had to be present. You weren't. I didn't write this to hurt you. I wrote it to end something. Not a relationship. A performance. From here on out, I live loud. I live whole. I live seen, not by you, but finally, by me. I sealed it in an envelope and placed it at the bottom of the box. Not to send, not to burn, just to know it existed. I closed the lid, and with it, the last door I'd been afraid to walk through. Sometimes the hardest goodbye is to the version of yourself that kept hoping they'd change. I used to think love meant waiting. For their approval, their attention, their apology. But I've learned that love isn't about who shows up when it's convenient. It's about who stays when it's hard, who listens without rewriting your story, and who lets you take up space without asking you to shrink. If you've ever felt invisible in the room you should have felt safest in, you're not alone, and you're not broken. You are not too much. You are simply in the wrong room. So maybe the question isn't whether we're worthy of love. Maybe it's whether we're done begging for it in places that never knew how to give it. Have you ever had to walk away from people you loved just to finally love yourself? What helped you take that first step? If this story touched something in you, drop a comment below. Tell me where you're watching from or what part hit the hardest. And if it didn't resonate, I'd still love to know why. Every perspective matters. If you found this story meaningful, consider subscribing to the channel so you won't miss the next one. We're building something honest here, and there's always room for you at this table.